Hello, welcome to the conversation here on News Central Television. This is the program where we bring you all the latest political updates and happenings on the African continent. I'm Gbenga Aborowa.
And I am Rita Omodia. It's another week for the conversation right here on News Central TV. And the weekend had two elections. We had the Zimbabwe elections. We also had not necessarily an election, but back in Nigeria, we had the APC National Convention, that is the ruling All Progressives Congress National Convention. And those are the two topics that we will be dealing with today. So we'll start with the Zimbabwe by-elections. Okay,
now the Citizens Coalition for Change, Zimbabwe's leading opposition party, has won 19 out of 28 National Assembly seats in the long-delayed parliamentary by-elections. The CCC won the majority in Saturday's elections. The 9 remaining seats went to the ruling Zimbabwe African National Unity Patriotic Front, ZANU-PF, which still holds a parliamentary majority.
Now, back in 2018, ZANU-PF won 145 seats from the 210 available seats in parliament. The parliamentary and local government by-elections are seen as a preview for next year's presidential elections, in which the opposition is hoping to dislodge ZANU-PF, which has been in power since Zimbabwe's independence in 1980. That's a very long time. Now, joining us today on the conversation live is Dr. WURAYAYI Zembe. He is the President, Democratic Party, Harare, Zimbabwe. Also, we have Rashweat Mukundu, Africa Advisor at International Media Support, Harare, Zimbabwe. Gentlemen, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's start first. What was your general assessment of the conduct of the by-elections? I'll start with you, Dr. Zembe.
Greetings again to you and your viewers and audience. Well, the message was clear to me that Zimbabweans are seeking for an alternative group that should be legitimately empowered to constitute a democratic government through free, open, and democratic elections. The statement they started now, these by-elections have preceded the general elections that are to be held only a couple of months away in 2023. So the message is very clear. Zimbabweans have been very emphatic as to the direction the country should take in terms of legitimate democratic governance. Because the CCC has won 68% of the parliamentary vote by elections, which is majority from 50 to 60 by 18%. And then council elections, 61.5%. So in both the categories of representative democracy, national and local authority, Zimbabweans have indicated their mood. So in 2023, they will actually show a convincing decision to institute a free, democratic, legitimate government in Zimbabwe through a people's election. That's my observation.
Thank you, Dr. Zembe. Now, I would like to bring in Rashweat. Dr. Zembe did say the Zimbabweans have chosen an alternative from what they're used to, the ZANU-PF government, for the past 40 years. Do you agree with him? And there are also reports of low voter turnout, especially in Harare. What do you think might have been responsible for this voter apathy?
Well, when it comes to by-elections, our analysis is that there's generally been a low turnout in all elections that are related to members of parliament and councillors, especially in between the major or the big general elections that we expect or that we will have in 2023. So the voter apathy is generally expected, but I agree with Dr. Zembe in his analysis that there's generally a feeling in the air that Zimbabwe is ripe for political change, for the change of the leadership. There are still, I think, many issues and hurdles that lie ahead for the opposition. First, the victory of the opposition in these by-elections was largely expected because the by-elections were taking place in the majority of urban centers where the opposition is strong as compared to rural areas where the ruling party ZANU-PF is strong. We also need to be aware and take note that ZANU-PF ate into the urban seats of the opposition, winning some wards in some towns or cities, as well as winning two constituencies that were held by the opposition in the last election. So we still have a political fight ahead of us. We know the Zimbabwean political situation that the incumbent, especially ZANU-PF, always uses all tricks in the political book to maintain a grip on power, manipulation of the political processes, violence that we also saw in this by-elections in which one opposition party member was killed and several were beaten and others arrested. So we are likely to see an intensification of this two-pronged strategy by ZANU-PF, which is first to try to politically incorporate, bribe, corrupt those that are opposing them. And if this does not succeed, then we will see intensified violence against the opposition. Regardless of this, I think 2023 will be a watershed election year for Zimbabwe.
Okay, Rashweat, now still following from where Dr. Zembe left, because you said 2023 is really going to be a tough one. You also said, talked about people wanting change. Now, how much is this CCC led by Nelson Chamisa a bigger threat to the ruling ZANU-PF party, especially when you compare it with the other opposition, that's the faction of the Movement for Democratic Change, which is led by Senator Douglas Monzora? How much of a threat is the CCC?
Where that ZANU-PF and the whole state machinery has been making a concerted effort over the past 2 or so years to destroy the opposition, first by infiltration, causing divisions. Of course, part of the divisions in the opposition are also of their making in terms of lack of principle, in terms of lack of consistent leadership, in terms of lack of a coherent message that would link them with their support base. And the by-election result clearly showed that the ZANU-PF project to destroy the main opposition, especially Nelson Chamisa, has failed. This was no mean effort. Everything was thrown at Nelson Chamisa and the CCC political party, but it has emerged victorious, but more importantly, it has survived this onslaught. So the CCC remains the biggest challenge to Emmerson Mnangagwa. If you remember, in the last election, Emmerson Mnangagwa won by a very small margin, 50.1%, as compared to slightly over 45% a vote for Nelson Chamisa in the presidential count. And Emmerson Mnangagwa is no longer the leader who has the benefit of doubt when they removed Robert Mugabe in 2017. He is no longer the leader that he holds a unified ZANU-PF as Robert Mugabe did. ZANU-PF is divided. There are unresolved leadership issues in ZANU-PF. The economy is not performing well. The promises that Emmerson Mnangagwa made from 2017 when he succeeded Robert Mugabe, then in 2018 when he won that he contested the election with Nelson Chamisa, they have not been met. So the people of Zimbabwe are thinking, is this the person to lead us into the future? And to me, this is the critical challenge that Emmerson Mnangagwa faces in contesting with Nelson Chamisa in 2023. That is now being judged on the basis of his performance or lack of performance, not necessarily on the promises that he made to the people of Zimbabwe when they kicked out Robert Mugabe in 2017.
Thank you, Rashweat. Dr. Zembe, Rashweat just said it's no longer, he's been tried and tested, President Emmerson Mnangagwa. Now, the CCC won 19 of 28 seats in Saturday's by-elections, in which 10% of the parliamentary seats were at stake. It also won a majority of local council seats in the by-elections, according to preliminary results released on Sunday. Were you surprised by this sweep from the opposition Triple C? And what does this victory mean in the bigger scale of things for the person of Nelson Chamisa and the CCC as we inch closer to the 2023 general elections in Zimbabwe?
I was not surprised by the win of the 3 Cs, because that represents the decision of Zimbabwean people as voters who have the right to vote for a government of their choice through a secret ballot, 1 person, 1 vote. So this one, the outcome, I was not surprised, because Zimbabweans are engaged in a long howl to discover freedom and democracy. From colonial era to the present day, Zimbabweans are discovering a new country under a new people-driven constitution, a new people-driven electoral framework, a new philosophy of civilian government as opposed to military government. We've had a military government using a ruse of civilian elections as cover, because elections have been rigged since 1980 to date. And our first president was not removed by the people through an election. He left office through other means by failing to act in office, and he disagreed with his lieutenants, particularly the military, because Mugabe was head of the military, among other things, head of state and head of government and head of the military. And now, so we have had military rule junta, which was covered under the regalia of the civilian election in courts. So what we have seen under the CC results now is a struggle to discover, like I'm saying, free, open, democratic elections, where Zimbabweans...
Dr. Zembe, are you saying the elections that ushered in President Emerson Mnangagwa following the ouster of late President Mugabe by the military wasn't democratic enough, or is not democratic in your own opinion?
That's correct. It wasn't democratic because it was held under an undemocratic constitutional order. The Constitution of Zimbabwe, Amendment number 20, Act of 2013, is a document that represents Mugabe, the past president's wishes as an individual. Mm-hmm. It was produced through COPAC. The COPAC program belonged to Mugabe as the owner of executive powers. That process was done, and Mugabe enshrined in that document what he wanted, his personal views about power. And that is the document that he left by mistake. It was a tragedy because he was pushed out of power through a combination of disagreement by his lieutenants in the military and his lieutenant in the political wing in Emerson Mnangagwa. And then the people rose because Mugabe was now trying to destroy Emerson Mnangagwa as vice president and the vice president in the party, ZANU-PF. And he was also now, Mugabe, threatened by the military because the military were being given instructions by Mugabe's wife, who is not supposed to be, who was not supposed to do that in office. But Mugabe lost control at the family level, and then he lost control at the party level and at national level. And he was booted out through a process which was now supported by the people, because the people had been calling for Mugabe's resignation or defeat through a democratic election, which never came. Mm-hmm. So when Mugabe left, the constitution that is there now says, if a president retires, dies, that means leaves office, the successor should come from the political party from which that president came from. Yeah. This is why Mnangagwa came in and inherited those powers. So the 2018 elections were held under the same conditions that Mugabe held the elections for 37 years. And so the 2018 elections were brutal. We saw people being shot, killed in Harare, leading to the institution of the Monshande Commission. In 2019, again, we saw people being shot because of the presidential powers that are cited in this document. So the elections were not held as free, open, democratic elections.
All right, Dr. Zembe, you've given a whole highlight of how much the political tussle and turmoil in Zimbabwe has been for a very long time. And we've seen main parties now harassing and intimidating opposition, which you clearly stated, Rashweat. Now, I think in one of the rallies, the Zimbabwe's first president, that's Constantino Chiwenga, he compared the opposition to insects that must be destroyed. Now, if I would quote him, he said, "You see how we crush lies with a stone." He told a rally of the ruling party last month. Now, this is to show how much they want to descend on opposition. Now, with CCC winning a whole lot of seats in the parliamentary and the by-elections, do you think he will be able to overcome this harassment? And do we see this continuous harassment and intimidation even for the 2023 elections?
Yes, that's an important question, my sister. Observation and question. The thing is, an election should belong to the people of Zimbabwe. It should not belong to the sitting president of Zimbabwe. It should not belong to the arms of state, security arms of state, the police, the army, and the secret intelligence and the prisons. Those must serve the people. If we were operating under a people-driven democratic constitution. Now, the vow by Vice President Chiwenga indicated the violent language that is actually represented by the current constitutional dispensation from colonial Lancaster's constitution we inherited from the British. There were powers, executive powers that were given to the president of this country that Mugabe used to run down this country, to destroy, to cause instability and to kill people. And now we see now the expression of those who have led. Vice President Chiwenga is a former commander of Zimbabwe Defense Forces. However, his utterances now as a political actor in fact represent the current constitutional framework. But at the Kwekwe rally, yes, he compared CCC to lies. And he said, we'll put on the rope, crash it so that the flies will not have a meal. But however, yes, the following day, a CCC member was crushed and died. And Vice President Chiwenga tried to retract. But then that angered Zimbabweans. The issue of elections belongs to the people. And now the by-elections were held under a very undemocratic and ruthless framework. But you can see that the people of Zimbabwe were not threatened. That's why the verdict has come out open. That is the answer to resistance or to Vice President Chiwenga's statement. It has been defeated by Zimbabweans when they decided through the secret ballot in these by-elections that the CCC campaign manifesto represents what the people of Zimbabwe desire to see now and next year in the general election. So the issue is about the people of Zimbabwe and their responsibility to put a democratic government in office that should do the business of running the state to provide to the needs of Zimbabweans, the reconstruction of Zimbabwean lives, their economy, and the development pedestal that the citizens of Zimbabwe desire. Zimbabweans are their own liberators against the oppression by their own kith and kin or against the oppression of other nations in the universe. So the issue is, yes, I'm concluding my answer by saying, in spite of the utterances by Vice President Chiwenga, Zimbabweans are not being threatened at all. they have decided to rescue themselves because they are looking at the specter of death through starvation, through deprivation, through lack of employment, through nothing. So it's not about the individual. The Citizens Coalition for Change now unifies Zimbabweans regardless of their party regalia or membership, because it is the natural citizens who are registered voters who will vote. It's not political party names. Parties are not voters. Parties help to organize a process of representative democracy so that there will be formation of unified governments after the elections. People who belong to the same thinking are identified by political parties. That is one of the major roles of political parties, just to assemble groups that have ideologies about constitutional governance through people's elections. So the issue is the CCC is now uniting all Zimbabweans from across political parties and from across all business sectors, whether in Zimbabwe or outside Zimbabwe, to make a decision to remove dictatorship.
Thank you, Dr. Zembe. I would like to bring in Rashweat here, and you said I would like to pick it up from where you stopped, saying the CCC is uniting Zimbabweans. Rashweat, earlier this year, the leader of the CCC group, Nelson Chamisa, he left the Movement of Democratic Change, which he has been in for a number of years, and because of factionalization and other reasons. Looking at the results of this weekend, was that a master stroke, and has it weakened its popularity? And following from what Dr. Zembe said, that the CCC's victory would unite the opposition, are there any chances of a coalition of opposition groups coming together to end 40+ years of ZANU-PF dominance in Zimbabwean politics?
What we cannot deny is the fact that the opposition has yet its own contradictions or its own challenges that have diminished their effectiveness over the years. So the decision by Nelson Chamisa to leave the Movement for Democratic Change was a strategic decision to leave a political party that had been tainted, a political party that had been heavily infiltrated, a political party that was no longer fit for purpose. It was a masterstroke decision because there had been so many, in fact, so many legal battles that we cannot count for the control of the MDC. There had been so many splinter Movement for Democratic Change factions, parties that had emerged over the years. And the support base of the opposition was really confused, but also beginning to lose confidence or faith in the capacity of the opposition to lead. And the decision by Chamisa to form or to be part of the coalition, the Citizen Coalition for Change, was a strategic decision to remove the baggage that was weighing down on the opposition, but more importantly, to re-establish who the real opposition is, because all along, the ruling party and government were saying that Nelson Chamisa was finished because the Movement for Democratic Change was now being led by Douglas Monzora. And this decision was good in that he separated himself from all the mudslinging, from all the chaos that was happening in the Movement for Democratic Change. He appealed to the support base, and as Dr. Zembe was saying, the people of Zimbabwe made a decision last Saturday, 26 March, on who the opposition party that they support is. So essentially, Zimbabwe is back to its default political position or status, that it is a two-party political environment led by the CCC, by Nelson Chamisa, and the ZANU-PF by Emmerson Mnangagwa. But let us also not discount, and let me re-emphasize, the point that Dr. Zembe made, that ZANU-PF is the political or civilian arm of the Zimbabwe military. What Nelson Chamisa is dealing with is the Zimbabwean military. The reason why Robert Mugabe was removed in 2017 was because the Zimbabwean military, the generals, now the vice president of Zimbabwe, were not happy with him. So there's no doubt that come 2023, what Nelson Chamisa will be facing is a ZANU-PF, which is the civilian arm of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces.
Okay, Rashweat, just to reiterate what Gbenga said, he asked if there will be a coalition from opposition parties to join rather to fight against the ZANU-PF. Do you think...
A united front.
A united front. Do you think that's possible?
It appears that the opposition is too suspicious of each other. Looking at what has happened between Nelson Chamisa and the Movement for Democratic Change and Douglas Monzora, and also what has happened with the other leader that you had mentioned, Dr. Thokozani Kupe, who was also one of the factional leaders in the MDC. There seem to be so many suspicions within the opposition groups, some of which work directly with Emmerson Mnangagwa under a political dialogue platform, which is called Poland. So after 2018, Emmerson Mnangagwa called some opposition political parties to be part of this political parties dialogue for Poland. And some of them have joined this platform. They have received new vehicles, they receive allowances, they have other perks that they are getting from Emmerson Mnangagwa. The question then is, will these people be trusted enough either by Nelson Chamisa and Triple C to be part of an opposition coalition? So if I think of who can be part of an opposition coalition to challenge ZANU-PF, it's really a difficult question to answer because of the numerous suspicions and the polarization that is within Zimbabwean opposition. But however, let me not rule out that there could be other emerging political parties who may see value in working together. So this is still up in the air. This is something we have to watch in the future, but for now, I'm very skeptical.
Okay, Dr. Zembe, let's hear from you now, because Rashweat is talking about a coalition of opposition parties. Do you think it's possible there will be any coalition from the opposition parties?
Yes, very much so. It has already begun in the philosophy of citizens' coalition for change. It is the citizens of Zimbabwe, it is the people of Zimbabwe who are the opposition to the existing dispensation. You see, we are discovering the people's power here in determining the people's government, which we have never had from colonial Rhodesia to this day we are discussing. So Zimbabweans have now informed their agents, in other words, people in the industry of politics, that Zimbabweans desire to have a power that must now be deployed to deal with the national crisis that we have had. So they've advised CCC President Nelson Chamisa to embark on the ideology of Citizens Coalition for Change project, which now takes the relay stick from the Movement for Democratic Change Alliance project. Because the Movement for Democratic Alliance project was destabilized by the ZANU-PF government. And that destabilization did not stop the people of Zimbabwe from moving further to liberate themselves. That's why, after consultation, President Chamisa was informed to have a new ideology in the Citizens Coalition for Change. So already Zimbabweans have been unified. Already we have seen the results from these by-elections. So we are going to see a resounding result next year in 2023, because it's both a philosophy, and when President Chamisa now forms an organ of his party officially, the organs of his party. He will form his party, and the program of his party will be citizens-driven. For example, the Democratic Party, the party I lead, is a citizen of Zimbabwe.
Yes.
Okay.
So you will find that the Democratic Party will concur with the C philosophy.
Dr.
So
Zembe, I'm sorry I have to interrupt you there. We're fast out of time. I would like to say a very big thank you to you, gentlemen, Dr. WURAYAYI Zembe, President of the Democratic Party, and of course, Rashweat Mukundu, Africa Advisor at the International Media Support, Harare, Zimbabwe. Thank you very much for sharing your insights with us. We're definitely keeping our eyes on the political situation in Zimbabwe, and we'll be happy to have you join us some other time. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for having me tonight.
All right, now this is where we'll take a quick break and we'll be looking at situations going on in Nigeria as the ruling party, that is the All Progressives Congress, had their national convention. We'll be right back. Do stay tuned. Many thanks for staying with us on the conversation. We're on the second phase right now where we're talking about situations in Nigeria where the ruling party, that is the All Progressives Congress, had their national convention and they selected new party executives to oversee its affairs as the 2023 election gradually draws near. Now, at the convention, which was held at the Eagle Square in the nation's capital, Abuja, Senator Abdullahi Adamu emerged as the national chairman, while Senator Iola Omishore was confirmed as the national secretary.
Now, this comes 2 years after the Adams-Oshiomhole-led executive was dissolved. But this convention this time around took a different twist. There's a majority of those elected into executive positions were actually chosen by consensus, candidates opting to step down after closed-door negotiations. Now, joining us this evening on the conversation is Lukman Owolabi, a public affairs analyst, and joins us from Lagos, Nigeria. Lukman, good to have you join us on the conversation today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Now, Lukman, what's your take on the consensus mode of electing party executives with a so-called unity list and the withdrawal of all the chairmanship candidates? What does this mean for the politics of internal party democracy in Nigeria?
Oh, yeah. You see, when a short man begins to cast a long shadow, you should know that the sun is about to set. Mm-hmm. It also goes to show that in the way we talk about one Igbo adage, it says, when a chicken gets to a strange land, it actually stands on one leg. It's a very trying moment for the ruling party. And what is happening is that they didn't want any kind of rancor that could torpedo the fortunes of the political party at this time, when they're expecting to go into general elections next year. So they will try all best possible to make sure that they present a unity list at the convention. It was not a very easy task for them. So much so that many people had hinged their ambition on being recognized as a party power monger. So the moment that they talked about the unity list, many people started fuming that, look, these people had already prepared those who they want inside this executive committee. And you know what is happening when you are going for an election against next year. Everybody wants to position themselves and be very, appear very good in the books of the executives. So it becomes a very chaotic situation. The unity list was not unifying. So at the end of the day, they had to even do some kind of gumboot diplomacy. They forced some people to align with the unity list. Some were spoken to that, look, this is the way we want it to go. If we go into elections, number one, they believe that it will create a great deal of rancor within the system. because they could not guarantee that everything will go according to plan. And many people would be disenchanted. So they tried everything possible to make sure that they presented a unity list so that at the time they get to the convention, they will just come and say, oh, good, everything is good. They will just name the executives. It was not, everything did not go as planned because many people were disenchanted, and they also showed how disenchanted they were at the convention grounds. At the end of the day, they did what they had to do. Yeah. They elected Senator Adamu as the chairman, and he was also part of the reconciliation committee, which is also good for him. So he knows that his work is cut out for him. So he will now go all out and try to, bring everybody back on board and make everybody satisfied. And what kind of horse trading will go along the line. They will make promises and everything. The good thing also is that all those people that agreed to withdraw and conform with the unity list were promised that they will refund whatever they paid to the party. So that alone is also an incentive for them to agree to the exercise. All right. Which is, Okay, I can hear you.
Okay. Now, I want to pick from where you stopped now. Now, some people will say, rather than African adage, you say, a leopard never changes its spots. Now, if we look at the man, you talked about Abdullahi Adamu, and of course, which has turned out to be the national chairman. We also have the national secretary now, Iyoola Omisore. Now, if we go through their past records, we see corruption allegations and, of course, even murder allegations against the national secretary, that is Iyoola Omisore. Now, the presidency made a statement in which it says sinners have repented. And then we also see the APC has been attributed to this quote of, when you join the party, your sins are forgiven. So does this put a stain on the ruling party's mantra of anti-corruption fight? Or do we see things as all fair and square and truly sinners have repented?
No, you see, that's not correct. Sometimes we go with cliches in Nigeria. When the president said they had repented, all he was saying was that they were in the PDP. They were all in the PDP. Yes. And what the thing is that they had always regarded the PDP as not working for the people. So for them to cross over to APC, that's what he was saying when he said they have repented. They have now repented as being members of the PDP and have now joined the progressives.
But what about the corruption charges that have been leveled against them, even though they were charged and acquitted?
It had nothing to do. No, it had nothing to do with the corruption charges. Because we all like cliches in Nigeria.
No, aside from the cliches, we're looking at the past records of these individuals. Now, of course, we go through records and we see that there were corruption allegations. Because if you're saying that we're going through cliches, and that's because you moved from the PDP to the APC, what about their track record? Would you see it as someone who is really fit for the post as a national chairman, someone who has actually been charged in the past in 2010 by the EFCC for corruption allegations of about 15 million naira? So let's go through the track record of these individuals.
The thing is, you see, when it comes to allegations, they will remain allegations. If we have to look at every Nigerian that has not been accused of anything, you probably will not find more than 10. But the thing is, they always say, until you are convicted of a crime, nobody can call you an ex-convict. So we always give them the benefit of the doubt. If you look at the political landscape in Nigeria, there's hardly anyone that has not been accused of anything. We know those who have been convicted. We know them. We know even some ex-governors are in jail as we speak, for corruption charges. So if we have to accuse everybody within the political system and use that against them, they will have nobody to contest any form of election. The thing is, you remember the current governor of Bauchi State, till he won election and became the governor in Bauchi State, the EFCC was still taking him to court, and he contested the election and won. It does not mean that they cannot continue the case after he loses his immunity. But the point is, as long as he's not convicted, we'll always give them the benefit of the doubt. The good thing about criminal accusations is that they are not statute-backed. You can be, they can call you back to come and answer charges at any point in time. But for the moment, we'll still work with what we have, because it is dangerous, actually, to want to pin somebody's hope on accusations. Because, in the political firmament, that happens a lot. And until we get somebody who has been convicted, that is when we can say, okay, we are on the moral high ground now. So I wouldn't join people in saying somebody has been accused, because what they say, especially when you have been in executive positions, they always accuse you of misappropriation. So it's a case of misappropriation that has been taken to court. So if you have not been convicted,
that is why the Nigerian
it's dangerous for anybody to pin anything on that.
And I guess that's why the Nigerian Constitution has granted executive members a certain type of immunity, so they don't get bogged down with court cases all the time and accusations. Now, just before we wrap things up, Lukman, you did say that the leadership of the All Progressive Congress is trying to heal some of the wounds of divisions in the party. They've asked those who stepped down that their money spent on nomination forms will be refunded, but I'm sure there's still people with bad blood, and it's not yet Kumbaya and Uhuru in the ruling All Progressive Congress. My question to you is that, is the opposition well positioned? They say a divided house cannot stand on its own. Is the opposition well positioned to take advantage of these divisions in the ruling All Progressive Congress as we inch towards the 2023 elections?
See, I didn't really get the meat of the question, but I think you spoke about the divisions. The divisions.
Is the opposition ready to capitalize on these divisions in the ruling party, the APC?
Of course, the opposition will always be there to capitalize on any mistake that you made. But the unfortunate thing for the opposition is that they are not that organized because they have their own problems of their own. They are facing a very huge task of determining where to zone their offices, particularly the presidency, when it comes to between the North and the South. It's a huge problem for them. So what they are waiting for now is for the APC to make a fatal mistake that they can always capitalize on. If you listen very well to the governor of Rivers State, he was even saying that they are going to take them to court, that they have not done things right, regarding the convention, that they will take them to court to have APC proscribed. And I said, that one, it's going to be a long shot.
It's quite rich of him.
I believe political parties should be able to stand on their own and talk about what they want to offer the people, the alternative that they want to offer, not waiting on the mistakes of others so they can cash in. Yeah. But, all is fair in war. If they have the opportunity to cash in on any division, they definitely will. And I won't blame them for that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lukman Owolabi, political analyst, joining us to discuss the just concluded APC Congress, where they elected new executives, national executives. And that's how much you can take in today's conversation.
Definitely, we'll look at how well the APC will go. Their primaries are up next for the party as 2023 election draws near. He mentioned a few good men. Well, I hope we have the best men for this particular elections. This is where we'll draw the curtains for this episode of The Conversation right here on News Central TV. Do join us again on Wednesday for another edition. I am Rita Omodia.
And I'm Gbenga Aborowa. See you on Wednesday. Bye-bye.